Greetings and salutations, family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the General, 7 Day Sports TV, and the entire LDBC family. Shout out to Anthony O'Neill and the Impact Creative Society. Last but definitely not least, shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. Jaguar Nation stand up. In this edition of the Southern University Football Show, I'm going to talk about a few different topics. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about breaking news, individual that's coming to Southern University via the transfer portal. Thereafter, I'm going to talk about if I was Southern University's head coach Terrence Graves or the offensive coordinator, either or, how would I work around Southern University's deficiency, the biggest deficiency they have this year offensively? And lastly, I'm gonna dive into something I've been attacking more lately. I'm gonna jump into another Southern University top five. So let's get this show on the road. I don't plan on keeping y'all long. Plan on being here for a good time, but not a long time. You dig? So what our first thing we're gonna talk about on this particular episode of the Southern University Football Show. Southern University, we got some news in terms of the transfer portal. Now, I know many individuals gonna be like, well, at this time of year, coach is slow, not a whole lot going on. However, breaking news: uh, punter slash kicker Kenny Lee Pham from Alcorn State has committed to Southern University. He's from Port Arthur, Texas. So this gonna be, you know, depends on how good he is. If he's as good as someone like Carlos Leach as a kicker, or if he's as good as someone like Matt Bushart as a punter, this could be a huge addition for Southern University. So, we'll see how things play out. That's another thing. But, when players commit to Southern University, whether it's via the transfer portal or whether, you just get them straight out of high school, they come from a JC, another PWI, whatever route they come from, you don't know how good players really are until you get them in uniform and actually step on the field. So at the end of the day, when it comes to this young man, we'll see how good he really truly is, how good he's really gonna be. So we'll see how things play out. Next, I was talking to someone and they said, Coach, of course I like your content, so on and so forth. And I told them I appreciate the support, this, that, and the third. It was like you were coaching, of course. And of course, I was like, of course, I coach middle school football and basketball. So they was like, well, if, you was running Southern University's offense, like, how would you deal with the issue they had with the offensive line play? And I'm like, that's an excellent and amazing question. So I'm gonna address that particular question right here, right now. First and foremost, if I was an offensive coordinator, if I was Terrence Graves, whoever the decision maker is in terms of the offense for this coming season, this how I would shout out and salute to my brother Jay Good. What's good with your family? So if I was the offensive coordinator for Southern University, whoever it is making the decisions in terms of the offense this year, this is first and foremost what I would do. In terms of the offense, I'll try to do as much as I could to have a balanced offense. Now, when people hear balanced offense, if you have like 100 plays, they don't mean of those 100 plays, it's going to be 50 run plays, 50 pass plays. I mean, you're never going to have perfect balance. It's never going to be like 100% absolute perfect. If you are a little bit more proficient at running the ball, it may be 60 run plays and 40 pass plays. You're a little bit better at passing the ball, vice versa. It could be 60 pass plays and 40 run plays. But you want to be as close to a balanced team as possible. You don't want to be totally and completely one dimensional. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, we don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. We don't know if it's going to be Noah, who is the front runner to become the starter, whether it's going to be Jalen Woods, whether it's going to be Zay Tessett, or whether it's going to be Angelo Izzard Jr. We don't know, of those four quarterbacks who's going to be the starter, but more than likely, we're just going to say it's Noah because he's the leader in the clubhouse from what I'm understanding. He played the most last year of those quarterbacks, and he got the first snaps with the first team in a spring game this past spring. So your offensive line is deficient. So first and foremost, first thing I would do is Kendrick. First of all, you want to get the ball to your best playmakers. Kendrick Grimes is coming back. He was your feature back last year, and even though Colby Dillon, C.J. Russell was good, I think Kendrick Grimes is by far your best running back. So just from a running standpoint, you won't get Colby Dillon and C.J. Russell some touches, but Kendrick Grimes has to get by far the most touches of your stable of running backs. So you want to get him the ball as much as possible in terms of both the running game and in terms of screen game and throwing him the ball out the backfield. In terms of the wide receivers last year, listening to other content creators across the SWAC, basically they feel like Southern University receiver core wasn't that good. I don't think it was so much the fact that they weren't that good. I think it was so much so that Harold Blood was a game manager at best, and I'm just leave it at that. To me, I felt like August Petrie III, I think he was the best wide receiver of the bunch last year. I felt like Jalen Howard was good. But of that group, of course, those two are not coming back. Chandler Whitfield is. And I think from a receiver standpoint, you have to get him a bunch of touches. Get him the ball as much as possible also. So that's the first thing you want to do. You want to have a balanced attack. You want to get the ball to your playmakers in terms of Kendrick Grimes as your running back. Chandler Whitfield is your top returning receiver. And the thing about Southern University receiving core, it seemed like in the spring game, it seemed like they had like 20 wide receivers. So, all of these wide receivers, they seem to be all good solid receivers. But to me, I feel like Chandler Whitfield is the man. He's a veteran guy. He's a speedy guy in terms of being a punt and kick returner. I think you want to get the ball to Chandler Whitfield as much as possible. And then in addition to that, to supplement when your running game doesn't have it going, just like in the spring game, you won't have a lot of short, quick passes in terms of, screens to your running backs out the backfield, being, Kendrick Grimes and C.J. Russell. And you want to have wide receiver screens to Chandler Whitfield and your other receivers that you feel are playmakers. Whether we're talking about jailbreak screens, tunnel screens, bubble screens. So you want to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands quick, whether it's Noah, whether it's Jalen, whether it's Zay, whether it's Angelo, whatever the case may be. So you want to get the ball out of their hands quick. Another thing, too, you want to use, in addition to the screens, you want to use shovel passes, whether it's the draw style shovel pass, where you invite the defensive lineman up the field and you shovel pass it to your running back, or whether you act like you rolling out and you give him a shovel pass. Either or, you want to have some shovel passes embedded into your offense. Salute to the brother Brent Fox. Salute, Brent. Appreciate your support, bro. So you want to have some shovel passes, some screens, some quick plays, and talking about moving the pocket. Also, that's something you want to do too. You want to move the pocket in terms of have some rollouts, some sprint passes, some flood passes. So you want to move the pocket some. You want to have some quick passes, some screens, some shovel passes, and you want to run the ball as much as you could. So those are some things you could do to kind of offset the defense and try to keep the defense off balance. And then lastly, occasionally you want to take some shots deep down the field But more than anything, to start out the game, you want to get whoever your quarterback is. You want to get them going. You want to get them in a rhythm. Now, another thing they're going to need to do too is clean up the penalties. Last year, they had a lot of penalties, and they had a lot of penalties in the spring game. You want to clean those up because, if you're struggling to move the ball, you do not want to have your offense, playing from behind the chains. So you don't get to put yourself in a situation where it's, 3rd and 10 constantly, 3rd and 15, whatever the case may be. You won't have manageable down and distance on 3rd down, whether it's 3rd and 5, 4th, 3rd and 3, whatever the case may be. That way you won't have the opportunity to have a two-way go, whether you could run a ball or you could pass the ball, whatever the case may be. So, you won't mix it up offensively in terms of getting the ball out the quarterback's hands quick. You want to run the ball with the running backs, Kendrick Grimes in particular. And in addition to that, in addition to getting the ball to Kendrick Grimes and C.J. Russ and Kobe Dillon, you want to move the pocket. You want to have some screens to your wide receivers and running backs. You want to have shovel passes. So you want to have a good balanced offense. And I think that way you can help out whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Noah, whether it's Jalen Woods, whether it's Zay Testa, or even whether it's Angelo Izard Jr. You want to help your quarterback as much as possible in terms of getting them in a rhythm early. You want to try to run the ball even though your offensive line is suspect. You want to get rid of the ball quick. You want to move the pocket. And these are some things you could do to supplement not having a running game, because see, in years past, when Southern was able to win a SWAC championship, you had running backs like Lindsey Scott Sr., Melvin Williams Jr., Steve Warford, Leonard Tillery. You had those kind of guys, and you had an offensive line that was able to move the defense against their will. But it doesn't seem like, even though I think Kendrick Grimes could kind of fit in with all of those running backs in terms of his talent level, I don't think his offensive line is as good as the offensive line that Lindsey Scott Sr. had, or that Melvin Williams Jr. had, or Steve Warford, Leonard Tillery. So more than likely, you want people to move the defense against their will. And you don't want to completely abandon the running game, but, when you can run the ball, what you want to do is try to get rid of the ball quick out of the quarterback's hands. You want to move the pocket. You want to have some draws and some shovel passes. And, you just want to mix up your offense and keep the defense off balance as much as possible. Now, don't get me wrong. At some point, defense is going to kind of catch on to what you're doing. But, you kind of have to set your quarterback up as much as possible to be successful. And, you don't want to put your offense, constantly behind the sticks in terms of, 2nd and 3rd and long constantly. So I think that's one thing the Southern University could do this year to kind of help their offense out, help their quarterback out. And I'm going to just kind of be real. I attribute a lot of issues they had offensively to head coach and offensive coordinator last year, Eric Dooley. But at the same token, I was kind of encouraged what I saw in the blue versus gold spring game. And I really think Southern University, I think offensively, I think they're going to be fine as long as, they don't have the ridiculous amount of penalties they had during the course of the season last season. And not only that, the terrible turnovers. So that's going to be the main thing they're going to need to do. Not turn the football over, take care of the football, not turn it over. Then not have these terrible penalties, especially the holding penalties, the false start penalties, the penalties where they showed a ridiculous amount of lack of discipline. Seemed like they had no discipline. And then moving to the next thing, like I said, you want to try to run the ball as much as you could, even though the offensive line seems to be somewhat suspect. And then moving to the next point, you want to get rid of the ball quickly, screens to the running backs, bubble screens, tunnel screens, they're break screens to Chandler Whitfield, wide receivers of the like. You want to get the ball to your playmakers, Chandler Whitfield, Kendrick Grimes. You want to move the pocket, sprint passes, rollouts, that type of thing. You want to incorporate some shovel passes, whether you set up the rollout sprint pass and then give your running back a shovel pass underneath, or a draw style shovel pass where you invite the defensive line up field and you throw them and you just give them a shovel pass underneath, kind of like a screen. So you want to do all of these things to kind of help out your running back and mix up your play calling. And I'm not gonna lie, I had to give Coach Graves and his staff credit. I think they did a good job in terms of. Also, one other thing too, they when they were struggling, they was able to get the ball to the tight end in the Blue versus Gold Spring game. So these are some things Southern University offense gonna have to do this year to be successful, based on what I saw during the Blue versus Gold Spring game. I'm encouraged. I think the offense is going to be all right. But I think the one thing they're going to need to not do, besides having the penalties they had early in the Blue versus Gold Spring game, they're going to need to, jumpstart their offense. They're going to need to get it going quicker. It took them a while to get going in that Blue versus Gold Spring game. So you don't want to jump out. You don't want to let the opposing team jump out on you, 14 to nothing, 21 to nothing. You don't want to be behind to start out the game. So what you're going to need to do is do everything they did in the second quarter, in the first quarter of these games this coming season. You don't want to start out slow. You don't want to kind of sleepwalk through the first quarter, then flip the light switch and the light switch comes on and then you eventually get it going. No, you won't do that from the outset right away to kind of get things going. So the next thing we're going to talk about, of course, I'm going to get into my Southern University top 5. But before I get into my Southern University top 5, shout out to, my brothers Jay Good and Brent Fox. And Brent Fox said, he came in right on time. Love me hearing the running back utilization. Of course, Southern is going to be imperative that they get Kendrick Grimes going this season. I think he's the best running back that they have returning. I think Kobe Dillon and C.J. Russell are solid backs also. But Kendrick Grimes, to me, I think he's clearly the feature back. But, it's going to be imperative that, Southern University, from an offensive standpoint, they don't have all the issues they had offensively this past season. And I think you're going to need to establish your top running back, your top wide receiver, right away. So, shout out to the brothers Jay Good and Brent Fox. Also, shout out to my brother Jared 11 Green. We're going to do his show tomorrow, the Southern Baller Show, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also, shout out to the brother Brent Fox. His podcast is just me. So y'all go support these brothers. In addition to brothers outside of LDBC, shout out to Swag Talk. C. Wells, he does an excellent job, covering Southern University and just the entire SWAC in terms of, football and just sports in general. Also, shout out to HBC Overdrive. That's another HBCU content creator. They do a good job he does a good job in terms of, covering stuff in terms of the MEAC and just HBCU football in general. Shout out to Swack and the Fool, another HBCU content that's doing a good job, doing good work. They do good work. Of course, they look at things from an Alcorn State perspective, but even with that being said, they do a good job. And before I get into my Southern University top 10, we're going to have a little brief intermission. I'm going to let y'all hear the beautiful sounds of the phenomenal band from Jaguar Land, the Human Jukebox. Y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Okay, shout out to the Human Jukebox. Often imitated, never duplicated. The best band in the world, best band in the lane. Now that we got through that, shout out to brother David Scott the third. Salute, coach. He said he's listening while driving. I appreciate you to the fullest. I appreciate your continued support. So let's get into it. Our Southern University top five for this particular uh, group is top five defensive ends. Now, I know some individuals going to be like, man, coach, why this person not on the list? Why this person is not higher? Hey, just give me all your feedback, all your input. Put what you think in the comment section. As usual, when it comes to the Southern University top five, we start at the bottom. We work our way to the top. And remember, this is the Pete Richardson era to now. So starting out with my first two honorable mention slot, my bottom honorable mention slot, Southern University top five defensive ends. We starting out with Kevin Mack. Kevin Mack was a solid defensive end. Kind of like a lot of individuals that transferred from PWIs. Seemed like the second he stepped on Southern University's campus, he was an immediate and instant NFL prospect. And that always seems to be the case anytime a player transfers from a PWI to Southern University, they immediately become an NFL prospect. But I felt Kevin Mack, he was a solid defensive end. He was a good pass rusher. Now I know some individuals be like, man, coach, he was a good pass rusher. Why isn't he higher? Because I don't think he really kind of compares to the individuals that's in the top five. My next slot in terms of Southern University top five defensive ends in terms of my next honorable mention slot. He's the higher of the two. The next one is Joe Sykes. I remember Joe Sykes. Joe Sykes transferred from West Virginia. Of course, he played with Adam Pac-Man Jones when he was at West Virginia. Joe Sykes transferred to Southern. I had a few classes with Joe Sykes. Joe Sykes was a cool guy. He was a decent defensive end. And, of course, he's another one. The second he stepped on Southern University's campus from West Virginia, he was an immediate NFL prospect. And honestly, I'm going to just kind of call a spade a spade. I felt like he was solid, but I think he was a little bit overhyped in my estimation. But he was a solid defensive end. The thing that kind of got me with Joe Sykes is he was a good pass rusher, but as big and as strong as he was, I felt like he got pushed around a little bit too much for my liking. That year in the Bayou Classic, I remember I had athletic injuries class with Joe Sykes. And for those individuals that played for Southern University, Doc Williams is a legendary athletic trainer. Southern University, he was also an athletic trainer for the Dallas Cowgirls. And, Doc Williams is a legend in terms of from athletic trainer standpoint. So, he told Joe Sykes he did a good job. And, me and my other friend, we looking at each other like, no, not really. He didn't have a good game against Grambling in the Bayou Classic, but I guess Doc saw something we didn't see. And truthfully speaking, I felt like Joe Sykes was a good defensive end. He was solid, but I think when he played against guys that were bigger than him and stronger than him, I felt like he struggled at times. Of course, he at one point, he was an undrafted free agent of the Washington Commanders. Of course, we know what their name was at the time. To be politically correct, we're not gonna use that name, but he was playing with them before he eventually got cut. But Joe Sykes, he was a solid defensive end at Southern University. Now let's get into my top five. The number 5 spot, this individual, he was a man at Donaldsonville High School, but he had so many dogs around him, he got overshadowed. And he came to Southern University. He was on a kick return team for a little minute, but his senior year he really took off. This individual was Michael Landry. I felt like Michael Landry was a dog. He was a good pass rusher. He wasn't as good a pass rusher as other individuals on this particular list, but I think the thing that separated him from a lot of defensive ends at Southern University, like he was freak-like strong because being that I was a physical education major, and oftentimes senior would send me to go get tickets or go get stuff for him or whatever, in terms of Southern University athletics. I'll pass through the Felton G. Clark Activity Center to do stuff, and I'll also go to the Mini Dome. So, going to the Mini Dome, Seymour Gym, wherever they would be lifting weights, whether it was Seymour Gym, whether it was Felton G. Clark Activity Center, especially Felton G. Clark Activity Center, Mini Dome, I'll pass through. And if you look at the records for the players, like who had the highest squat, who had the highest clean and jerk, Michael Landry had like a lot of those records at the time. So evidently he was freak-like strong. And man, he was a good run stopper. He was a decent pass rusher. I felt like he got a lot of his pass rushing sacks off of like kind of stunts and slants. So he wasn't as good of a pure natural pass rusher as some of these other guys on the list. But, Michael Landry was a beast. He was real solid that last year in, at Southern, his senior year. And then eventually he ended up going to NFL Europe, where he made first team all NFL Europe. I mean, and on the Southern Baller Show, shout out to my brother Jared Lovin Green. He, Brent Fox, Jay Good, Big Joe Townsend, JB. We always talk about, we've been talking about the UFL, how the USFL and the XFL merged together, and how, with these leagues, guys don't have as many opportunities. But, Michael Landry had an excellent season in NFL Europe, and he made first team all NFL Europe. I remember I was working with my uncle who was a general contractor and a carpenter at the time, and he just had the little run he had in NFL Europe, and he was like jogging with his pit bull through the neighborhood. He was getting ready to go to training camp for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, he had, he did solid in training camp, but he did not make the Kansas City Chiefs roster at the time. But Michael Landry was a solid defensive end at Southern University, so he had the number 5 slot. The number 4 slot, this seemed to be a little bit of a theme. Another individual who's a product of Donaldsonville High School. This is Taj Brown. Of course, Taj Brown played middle linebacker when he was at Donaldsonville High School, inside linebacker. Then eventually, he went to Texas. Then eventually transferred to Nicholls State. The last couple seasons he was at Southern University, where he made second team all SWAC the last 2 years. Now, I know certain people are going to be like, Coach, Taj Brown played nose guard. He did. He played nose guard year before last, but this past season, Taj Brown played defensive end. And truthfully speaking, Kelby Givens this past season, he was a better pure pass rusher as Taj Brown, but Taj Brown was more of a disruptive force. So Kelby Givens was a better pass rusher, but Taj Brown was more disruptive. And I'm not gonna lie, Taj Brown was a beast. I didn't think he was gonna be able to make the transition from nose guard to where he played nose guard, and he made second team all SWAC at nose guard, to be able to make the transition to playing defensive end. And I'm not gonna lie, he made the transition seamlessly. Last year against Alcorn State, truthfully speaking, when he didn't play in that game, and Kelby Givens kind of had to do his thing on his own, he wasn't the same guy, and they didn't give him no special attention to the standpoint where they slid coverage and slid protection Kelby Givens' way. They chipped on him, anything like that. They just kind of played him straight up. I mean, don't get me wrong, they did a lot of grabbing him and holding him, but it seems like without Taj Brown on the opposite end for him to feed off of, Kelby Givens was not the same player without having Taj Brown. So Taj Brown was a beast these last 2 years at Southern. And, hopefully he does well. He make it to the NFL. Just hopefully he does well in his future endeavors. So Taj Brown had the number 4 spot, top 5 Southern University defensive ends. The next individual, he's another one. He was a beast. Kendall Shullo. Kendall Shullo was the man in those early to mid-90s, mainly the mid-90s at Southern University. Kendall Shullo was a good run stopper. He was a good pass rusher. He was just kind of a complete package in terms of a defensive end. He was one of the staples in Southern University's Dog Day D at the time. Kendall Shuttle just was the man. I can't state how much of an impact he had on Southern's defense at the time. He just was a solid player. Of course, he had a lot of solid players around him, and I know a lot of people are gonna say that. Well, coach, you had people like Kenya Rounds playing next to him and so on and so forth. I understand that, but even with that being said, Kendall Shuttle was the man. And then once he left Southern University, he got picked up by the Indianapolis Colts as an undrafted free agent. He made it to the final cut, but he was never able to make it over the hump and make it to the Colts active roster. But Kendall Shuttle was a beast. He comes in at the number 3 slot in terms of Southern University top 5 defensive ends. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say this individual at the number 2 slot. Why isn't he number 1? And I'm going to get into that. At my number 2 slot, we have Jordan Lewis. Now, we know a few seasons ago, Jordan Lewis led FCS in sacks. Jordan Lewis was a beast at Southern University. The reason why I don't have Jordan Lewis higher on my particular list, because, of course, I think the individual at number 1 was better than him. But I think more than anything, I think with Jordan Lewis, truthfully speaking, I think Jordan Lewis is more of a linebacker than a legitimate defensive end. I think he's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker or just a linebacker in general. I think Jordan Lewis had most of his success when he played defensive end in spots or stretches. I think more than anything, I think Jordan Lewis was a blitzing linebacker. I don't think he's a legitimate defensive end. Don't get me wrong, he was a good pass rusher, but I think once Jason Rollins put Jordan Lewis at defensive end, like consistently, and then, of course, Eric Dooley also, I think Jordan Lewis kind of got exposed. I think he's an excellent pass rusher, but in terms of being a run stopper, he was able to get pushed around. Teams were able to run the ball right at him. And then in addition to that, I think when he was blitzing, he kind of caught teams by surprise and off guard. But once you made him put his hands in the dirt, and teams knew he was coming from that particular spot, playing and play out, teams were able to scheme for him. And then the thing about it is, he was able to just run around, use his speed, his athleticism, just to run around slower tackles. But tackles, especially left tackles that was athletic, that was able to move their feet and shuffle and slide and keep them in front of him. He struggled when he played those kind of guys because they were much bigger than him, much stronger than him. And basically, he just kind of got exposed to a certain degree. And truthfully speaking, he's still doing this thing. I saw a clip of him on X recently. So, hopefully he can make it to the NFL at some point. But I think more than anything, I think Jordan Lewis is kind of a bit of a tweener at this point. He's really not big enough and strong enough to play defensive end. And I don't think he's like your pure linebacker, whether it's inside or outside linebacker. I think he's more of a pass rusher more than anything. Now, the last individuals on this list at the number 1 spot, the number 1 spot on this list goes to Joe Williams. Man, Joe Williams was a beast at Southern University in those mid-90s as a defensive end. Of course, the same thing Jordan Lewis was his junior year. Joe Williams was the exact same thing his junior year for Southern University. I think the only difference between Jordan Lewis and Joe Williams is, of course, Joe Williams' junior year, he had Kendall Shuttle opposite of him, which kind of, it kind of helped him out. And, his senior year, teams legitimately, they slid protection Joe Williams' way. They chipped on him often. He got doubled a lot. And, some people say, he disappeared his senior year. No, he didn't disappear. Teams just gave him a lot more individualized attention. The fact that he didn't have Kendall Shuttle opposite of him. So that was the reason why. And then, of course, the thing with Jordan Lewis senior year where, I think, teams were able to prepare better for him. But with Jordan Lewis, they didn't slide protection his way. They didn't chip him. Offensive tackles were just better prepared to deal with Jordan Lewis senior year. Whereas with Joe Williams, It's not like they played him straight up and they played him one-on-one. No, they doubled him a lot more. He got chipped on a lot. They slid protection his way. So the difference is between Jordan Lewis and Joe Williams. They both struggled their senior years compared to what they did their junior year. But in the instance of Jordan Lewis, they played Jordan Lewis just straight up one-on-one. And he struggled against the more athletic tackles that was able to slide their feet and keep them in front of him. Whereas Joe Williams, they just kind of gave him a lot more individualized attention in terms of sliding protection his way, chipping on him, doubling him, so on and so forth. So that concludes the Southern University top 5 portion of the Southern University football show. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the top 5 list. We started out the show with the breaking news in terms of transfer portal. I gave y'all if I was the offensive coordinator, what I would do to, allow Southern University offense to operate at their highest and peak. And then lastly, I gave you my Southern University top 5 defensive ends. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the list. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the show. In a comment section, tell me what y'all would like in terms of my next position group in terms of Southern University top 5 or top 10. In addition to that, more than likely, this particular live stream is probably going to be broken down into 3 separate videos in terms of a Southern University top 5 defensive ends list. If I was the offensive coordinator, what I would do for Southern University in transfer portal news. So more than likely, depending on what type of response I get in this particular live stream, I'm going to see if I break this live stream up into 3 different videos. For everybody that came in, my brother Jay Good, brother Brent Fox, David Scott III, my brother Jared 11 Green. I appreciate everybody that stopped through, show love and support. In addition to that, also check out my brother Jared 11 Green. His twin JB, the brother Brent Fox, brother Big Joe Town. Check us out tomorrow on his channel, on Jared 11 Green's channel, for his weekly installment of his show, the Southern Baller Show. Check us out tomorrow. Hopefully y'all enjoyed today's edition of Southern University Football Show. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening, blessed and phenomenal weekend. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace and blessings. Y'all stay safe this weekend.